Welcome to the new episode of Fullfunnel Live. Today we made an exclusion to the rules. Today we hosted on Wednesday instead of Thursday because of public holidays in Spain. And as always, thanks a lot for joining us. We have a lot of sign-ups and we have received a lot of questions about the topic that we are going to cover today, how to enable the transformation from lead generation and sales-led motion to demand generation and full funnel account-based marketing. Before we'll dive deeply and before I'll share the agenda, let us know, guys, where you're all joining us from what city you are tuning in. Share in the chat, please. Curious to see. We have Kapil from India, Mateo, Brussels. Good to see you, guys.
Portland.
Maya, Manchester. Peyton from Portland. Cool. Pam, Calgary. Is it cold? Is it all snowing like in Eastern Europe? Chetas, Dublin.
It's super early in Portland, isn't it?
Eugen, Dnipro. Good to see you. Ina, Bulgaria. Marcin. Hi, Poland. Hi, Marcin. No snow at the moment. Good. And what I want to share with you, so we posted recently a lot about the transformation because this is kind of the projects that we or our company was involved in recently. Our clients were approaching us to help with that transformation and to change that, let's say, obsolete way of doing marketing or running marketing and sales operations to install the full funnel marketing. But while it all sounds logical, that transformation itself is a super complex process. Why? There are multiple reasons for this. I would just highlight the most common reasons that we see with our clients. The first one is lack of knowledge of how to enable that transformation. Lots of people simply don't have that experience. Next, lack of support and buy-in on the senior leadership. So basically, the senior leadership or stakeholders, they don't want to change, right? They say this is how we have done it for years. A lot of people, especially, there is an interesting fact. There are a lot of mature companies in terms for how long they are on the market, but they are marketing immature. They don't have any marketing fundamentals in place. And all of these people, they believe in like Wolf from the Wall Street, approaches that it's enough to hire good salespeople, and the salespeople just need to aware customers that the product exists. And that's hard to change. Another problem, one of the most common, even if there is a support on the leadership level and everybody understands that they need to change the approach, then simply like the change teams, the GTM teams, they don't know where to start and what would be the first step, right? And last one, even again, if marketers get the support from the sales leadership, everybody is nodding their heads, yeah, that this makes sense. But when they start doing something, right, when they initiate the transformation, then they see the resistance. And this is really hard to change. So it becomes a bottleneck or blocking point that basically destroys that transformation process. In our LinkedIn posts, we shared multiple examples in terms of what should be changed. So today we want to focus more on the questions that you guys asked us when you were signing up for this live episode, when you were the questions that you asked in the comments to this post. And it's all about how to start, how to get that buy-in, right? How to initiate that change and what can enable you to kind of finish successfully that transformation. Before we'll kick in, a short intro of our sponsor. I said it last time, until the end of the year, our partner DealFront, ex-Lead Feeder. Probably some of you know that platform, sponsored our podcast. And if you guys don't know, DealFront is a leading European intent data provider. There are a lot of companies that sell the same kind of service, but what sets DealFront apart is that first of all, this platform is fueled by live European data in multiple languages, and it provides you insights and also native integrations that other vendors don't have. Next, in DealFront, you can harness 3 levels of data. Aside from website traffic reveal, right? Aside from website traffic, you can get also market signals, and you can get also access to European Union company databases, right? And the best thing that you shouldn't be worried about GDPR compliance. For everybody who sells in Europe, you know what is it, right? And the challenges that coming from being not aligned with GDPR. DealFront meets European Union strict standards, ensuring GDPR compliance. Basically, if you sell to Europe and need a create intent data plus database platform, head over and get your free demo at dealfront.com. It's DealFront.com. I will drop a link in the chat so you can guys sign up for it. And that being said, we can kick it off. And the first thing I believe is what we need to talk about is why do your executives resist the change? That heavily depends. There are several factors, right? Why your senior leadership doesn't want to change. The first factor is if company used to grow because of the sales motion, right? It's hard to accept the reality that outbound doesn't really work. It's like a good parallel is, I love the examples from the history. If you guys remember the California golden rush, right? A lot of people were coming and mining that gold, and that's why a lot of cities, literally new cities started to grow in the United States, and a lot of people in Europe were indoctrinated that you need just to go and you need to do the same. And then they were coming to the United States, to California, and everything was super expensive. The equipment, the access to these gold mines, and a lot of people, they simply couldn't get any gold. And why I'm sharing that parallel, it's like a lot of companies were thinking that at one point it's just enough to develop this outbound motion. You can do just lead generation, right? You can automate it. You can scale it easily with software and by hiring more SDRs, and you can accelerate it by demand capture and putting more money into, let's say, ads machine, paying LinkedIn more, paying Facebook more, whatever, right? Any platform you name. But the problem is, like with that golden rush, that all channels saturate at one point, right? And then you try to mine gold where there is no gold at all, right? All the demands that was possible to capture, you probably have already captured. And now you need to sell to everybody who is not in the market. Not to say that the buying process has drastically changed, right? Now the buyers dominate the market, and all of you know, we don't need to cover this, but all of you know that buyers prefer to do their own research before talking to any vendor. They hate talking to sales reps, right? To people who just spam them with the messages, hey, buy my software, hey, let's get a demo, etc. And that leads us to kind of understanding that we need to do the things differently. But executives, right, it's hard to accept because there were years when your company was growing like this with, let's say, relatively easy efforts, right? And now you didn't invest in marketing. You did maybe very basic marketing, sponsoring the events, going to the trade shows, right? Posting some corporate press releases, turning marketing department into arts and crafts, right? And that's it. And now you need to invest. That's the biggest paradox. So that's why this is one of the main problems. Now, to change this, there are only two ways how you can, basically 3 ways, and these are the 3 things that we are going to focus on today. First, you need to get the data. You need to get a sober look at your data, at all of your motions, how these motions impact your revenue. And the biggest problem is that a lot of companies don't have even basic revenue data, even basic revenue metrics like win rates, like sales cycle lengths, like the number of real sales qualified opportunities that are likely to be closed, like average contract value, etc. Right? And they don't even want to get that data just to hide the reality, right? Just not to accept the reality. That's the first one. The second one is the insights and the feedback that is coming from the customers. When customers tell you how they buy, but that requires you to do the customer research. Guess how many companies run customer research? You know the answer, right? And lastly, to initiate the change, you need to run a side project, a small experiment, prepare leading and lagging indicators plus what we call traction signals, and compare it to existing motion. And when you combine all 3 layers of the data, then you can get that buy-in, then you can change it. So that being said, that was a brief intro of the problem and why this problem occurs and why it's hard to initiate that shift from lead gen to demand generation, or let's say to full funnel marketing. So let's cover each of these layers one by one. Let's start with the first one, Vlad, right? With getting the data.
So what the problem that Andrei described has a name. It's called the law of shitty click-throughs. So
I love it.
It's from Andrew Chen. He coined that term. So whenever there is a new channel, a new opportunity, a lot of marketers, of course, and salespeople will jump on it and saturate it over time. That's the link that I posted there. But if you look at the fundamental problem of the data and not getting the buy-in, one part of the problem is that you don't have clarity on the data. So we are running a bunch of programs. We are running a bunch of, MQL generation. We are running the outbound, and the company is growing. And as long as the companies were growing, you're not really interested so much to look at the individual details. Maybe you're hiding with high numbers. Maybe you're hiding, not you yourself, but like maybe as an organization, hiding behind the different activities. And it's usually, and this is just like the first thing that I want you to kind of pay attention to, it's usually when there is stagnation, we don't hit the targets, something like that happens, is when there is an opportunity to change. So a lot of companies, they come to us either because of a problem in growth that comes down from executives, we need to do something about it, and then we know that what we are doing is not working, but we are not really sure why, and we are not sure how to fix it, right? And then the second part of the problem is also that, like what you can see here, just to finish the thought about the first part of the problem, right, is getting the clarity on really which activities are actually driving revenue. So we know that there is a bunch of activities. We know that we do get the deals, but what happens? First of all, you say we have a lot of growth from SEO, but really what happens is a lot of the prospects hear about you from a referral. Maybe they got a recommendation on, let's say, dark social, whether it's a community social. Maybe they heard your name being dropped on a podcast like this, right? And none of this is attributable, but the way that people find you is just they type your brand in your brand name in Google, they come there. So there is a lot of inbounds, a lot of inbound pipeline, a lot of inbound revenue that gets assigned to SEO, where there is actually just another channel. So this is part of the problem. So when you start really digging into the different programs and understanding what works and what doesn't work, what you discover is actually pretty scary. Like when the companies come to us and when we analyze this, I mean, I'll just give several examples here. More than 15,000 MQLs generated, only, what was it, like less than 0.2% became wins, right? This is what you can see here on the left-hand side. That's terrible, but they didn't like take the time to analyze this and to show this. So their executives didn't even see this, right? And this is where the majority of marketing budget was going into. And then another example, just to give two different examples, is when companies try, let's say, ABM campaign, like in this case, kind of a not real MBM campaign, but this is what they were sold by an agency. They were running a campaign, I believe it was about 6 months. Yeah, quite a lot of money, 6 figures spent on this. If you can see here, 1,200 target accounts, which is like crazy, a lot. And a lot of quote unquote MQLs or engaged accounts, right? The real sales qualified and sales accepted opportunities were 2. So out of the 1,200 target accounts, 2 sales qualified opportunities, and again, no wins, right? So this is the reality. So the first thing you want to do is try to figure this out. Maybe you don't have the data yet. So maybe the first step is going to be, how can we get this data, right? So try to do whatever you can to get this data. I remember analyzing some campaigns and really diving deeply into just CRM analytics and just trying to figure out how can we assign or attribute these deals, right? But at the end, this may require you to spend some time collecting the data. The second point is sometimes the problems are hidden. And so what you see here is comparison of 2 different channels. And on surface, which is where a lot of companies look at, the channel 2 actually seems better because we have generated, or at least as good, right? We have generated 70 versus 60 opportunities on channel 2. And maybe it was actually cheaper or more scalable. Maybe this was, let's say, outbound versus inbound. The opportunities were about the same size. But if we don't look at the win rate and the sales cycle length, this is what we can conclude. Channel 2 is better. But if you take those into account, then what you see is a 55% difference. So what you see here is that channel 2 has, so from 95, so 20 days longer sales cycle. That doesn't seem to be such a big deal, right? Not such a big difference. And then it has a lower win rate. And actually, I didn't want to exaggerate here, 30 versus 20%. But what we see very often, like with outbound, even lower win rates, like more like 10%, 12%, 15%, not 20. And then you have a huge difference in revenue, or what we have actually calculated here is pipeline velocity. And I've posted the other day about it and shared the formula. So we don't want to go into this right now, but it is a great formula that takes into account the main metrics that contribute to revenue. And this is obviously the number of opportunities, the size of each opportunity, the length of the sales cycle, and the win rate, okay? And so what happens very often is when you're doing proper full funnel marketing, your buyers are reaching out to you once they were already educated, once they already know how you're different and worth buying. And that is why you usually have shorter sales cycles, higher win rates. Versus, for example, outbound, where you might have actually a lot of no-shows, or people joining out of curiosity and with no real intent to buy, right? And then you might, as well as a consequence, getting also lower win rates. There are other reasons, because you are also being compared, kind of you're positioning yourself as a commodity, one of many. Like what outbound essentially, the way that outbound works when it works is getting to the right people at the right time, which means, okay, you have to work a lot of numbers. You have to get to the right people at the right time. So they take you as a comparison. So what that means is that, especially when it comes to kind of like larger deals, enterprise, multiple buyers, what happens is that your competitors have been positioning themselves and influencing the purchase the decision criteria and the different buyers in the buying committee for a while. And there you come at the right time, which is actually late. You're joining the party too late. And that's why you usually have lower win rate. Now, one more thing that I wanted to share with you when it comes to analyzing the data to get the full picture, and also to be able to build your case and show why we need to change or why we need a different approach, is to also look at the reason why we are actually losing those opportunities. That I mentioned already an example of outbound. Maybe we have no-shows or people joining without intent to buy, out of curiosity. You just got there damn curious about what you're doing. But then it could be, for example, what we hear sometimes in new markets, or when there's just pure outbound motion, is that there is lack of brand awareness. Or in other terms, especially when it comes to enterprise deals, people are more risk averse. You know what they say, nobody got fired for hiring IBM, which just means that if you're not a category leader and you're not a known brand, that the risk-averse buyers are less likely to actually choose for you, although they might even like your solution. But they also have to stake their career, because if they make a mistake, it's not just about the rational reasons why they might choose your product, but it's also, am I taking a personal risk here or not? So all of these things make it so that, for example, brand awareness, especially when selling to larger companies, becomes important. And you're not going to solve brand awareness with pure outbound.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, guys, you see that if you don't have this data, if you don't have this revenue metrics, it would be so hard to change the current situation. What could be in sales pipeline velocity? Obviously, we don't measure MQLs, accounts, etc. It makes no sense to include in that report. But if you want to share a real picture, right? Why we are all sharing all of this? You need to show these examples, like in that screenshot you can see, right? We generated 16,000 MQLs. Let's applause, let's celebrate. But then, wow, we just closed 0.2%. That's not sounding good, right? Or the same like in that ABM example. I would quickly show this one as why we'll come back to this example later. The only reason why we want to do this, because then we want to compare. I mentioned that we need to do a side project, a small experiment to compare to existing, right, not working motions. Lead generation, right? And this is the kind of data we need to include. Even in this simple example, let's say you see that outbound conversion, right? We had it's easy to say if because a lot of companies, what they focus on, and the only kind of data they have in their CRM is that they focus only on discovery calls, right? Like Vlad demonstrated, discovery calls or opportunities, even not, let's say, real sales opportunities. And if you look at these examples, you can see, okay, we had 40 discovery calls booked with outbound, right? And with ABM on LinkedIn, we booked only 10. Definitely outbound works. But if you have revenue metrics and then you see the conversion, closed one, the ACV of these accounts, then you start seeing that the first motion definitely doesn't work. You need a 2,500 accounts, 2,500, right, to generate 40 discovery calls and only 15 sales opportunities, and only 7 were won, right? Which means that sales wasted time on 25 opportunities, which is insane. And imagine how much time they spend. So how inefficient it is, right? And then you can compare it to a new motion, but this is what we are going to cover next. Just wanted to give you an idea that sometimes, because coming back to this example, if we look only on sales opportunities, let's look at the right diagram, right? We have 2 sales opportunities. Obviously, there were no, these opportunities were not successfully closed, right? So the numbers, if we'll put this reported sales pipeline velocity, it will be broken, right? It will produce 0. But let's assume if 2 of these sales opportunities were closed and we put only these numbers into sales pipeline velocity, we have 2 opportunities, 100% win rate, right? Well, that sales cycle, whatever it could be, doesn't really matter. And then ACV. And then everybody says, fantastic. So this is the right ABM motion, right? But then you need to look, okay, so we had 1,200 accounts to generate these 2 sales opportunities. Now that's it's not the right motion. So sometimes it makes sense to include that volume. So you have this, let's say conversion pass, right? So you can demonstrate it like MQL assigned, and they then closed 1. Then in that case, you can see the reality. You can accept the reality. I see a lot of questions here, so we'll cover all the questions step by step. Some of the answers are already included in our, let's say, collateral for this episode. So stay tuned, and guys, we always cover all the all the questions. If you don't mind, can you please copy and paste these questions to Q&A block so we won't miss it in the chat, okay? There is a Q&A section in your dashboard, so just post your questions there and we'll cover them. So that being said, that's why we need to get the data, right? The first layer. Next one, as I mentioned, there is a customer research. We need to hear from customers, how do they buy, what influences their decision, right? How do they evaluate vendors? How do they run their research? How do they collect all of this information? That's essential. This is what you need to present to your key accounts. Ideally in a format of one-on-one calls, obviously transcribed with the key insights, but if they want to be persuaded, if they want to listen to these one-on-one calls, okay, here you go. This is a link to my conversation, right? That would be ideal case. We have covered this live with Vlad a few weeks ago, so I'm dropping a link here. And if you want to re-listen, or maybe if you didn't listen to that episode, go and check it. So we'll skip it, right? Data, customer research, and the third layer that I have mentioned would be the side project, right? A pilot, small experiment that you want to run. So what we are going to cover next, basically how to prepare for that pilot experiment. Maybe some of you have listened last week to our pilot ABM episode. We were covering this, right? So it would be pretty similar. So I would highlight the most important steps. And then the next thing that we are going to cover is how to create the change team, how to ensure that the transformation happens, right? What adjustments we need to make, how to deal with the resistance. That would be essential. And then we'll cover all of your questions. Before we'll move forward, one quick question, guys. Let me know if you are subscribed to our podcast. Please share in the chat on what platform are you subscribed. iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. I don't know how many platforms.
Are we on Amazon?
Oh, yes, of course, we are on Amazon. If you are subscribed, type please on what platform are you subscribed. Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. And if you are not subscribed, type minus. I would love to see how many people are listening to us live who are not subscribed. We need to figure.
Live is actually another channel you can share, indeed.
Yeah, so I will drop the links to our episode. Okay, coming back to our agenda, right? Next, what happens next, how to define what should be, right? Customer research I mentioned, but what pilot project should we do? This is this is an answer to the question, where should we start, right? What should be the first step? Okay, so we'll look at our current sales pipeline velocity and at our revenue metrics. Next, quite often we'll see that we have low conversion. We have so what are let's maybe make a step back and think about what are the red flags or what are the signals that tell us that we need to make this transformation, that our current motion doesn't work, right? Very long sales cycle, low win rate, low conversion, right, from sales qualified leads to sales opportunity, right? And sales qualified lead, by the way, doesn't mean the sales opportunity, but this is what most companies miss in their CRMs, right? Sales qualified lead is the discovery call. Sales opportunity, it's an opportunity with an assigned value and declared intent to buy, right? That's the difference. So this is something that you need to know. So what's your conversion from sales qualified lead to sales qualified opportunity? And sales qualified lead, this company that fits your ICP, but they didn't declare intent to buy your product. That's the difference. Now, if we look at all of these metrics, usually they are pretty low, right? Next step would be sitting down together with sales. I highly recommend involve sales leaders, or I mean, if you are in the regional team, right, involving your regional team leader, and doing analysis together, extracting, let's say for this year, for 2023, extracting all the deals from your pipeline and analyzing all of your lost deals. And then being very transparent about the reasons why we are losing the deals, right? We shouldn't be, the goal of that conversation shouldn't be product biased, right? Or just creating some irrelevant reasons, right? We need to be frank, we need to be transparent why we didn't win these deals. Maybe we are losing, like Vlad said, to our competitors, right? So company says, the prospect said, okay, we are going with your competitor. Maybe there is a problem with our marketing message. They simply don't understand what our product does and what makes it different from the competition, right? Pricing, but in most cases, the pricing means two root problems. One, you have problem with your ICP, so you generate non-ICP leads, right? That simply don't have the right budget to buy your product. So you need to pay attention to your marketing or sales programs, right? Who are you prospecting, right? Or refine your ICP. That's the first root reason. Second one is value, right? How you describe your product value, because you can always justify the product value for the company that has budget, right? And if you don't know how to do it, that could be the reason. So the same, like, why do we have, if we have a lot of no-shows, right? No-show ups, what's the reason for this? You need sales to name the problems, right? Because then, only then, when you collect all of this, you can prioritize all these problems and segment them by two groups. The first one would be the lowest hanging fruits, something that you can fix really easily, right? For example, put pricing on your web or create a product overview, right? That's really low hanging fruits to remove one friction point from the buyer experience, right? And improve your conversions. Maybe sending some reminders before the meeting or whatever, I don't know, right? What could be the issue? And the second one is thinking what programs we need to run to fix that. So let's say we assume, I'm just, for this specific episode, we'll use one example. So we have two issues, lack of brand awareness and no-show-ups, right? So we decide that for us, would make perfect sense to start the thought leadership program. So we'll use the thought leadership program as an example, because I know from our customers, a lot of them want, but again, don't know how, right? And also thinking that's time consuming, we don't know how to do it, and a lot of problems. And that's basically the second problem we start in the pilot, right? We know that we need to do something, but it's big, it's time consuming, how we need to do it. So there are four, again, I highly recommend to listen to our previous episode about launching ABM pilot, but for now I would highlight the most important things, right? First, you need to find a fellow sales rep, salesperson, and it could be senior person, it could be account executive, it could be SDR, it doesn't really matter, but the person who understands that the current process is broken and who is willing to do the change with you. You need to form that small pilot team, and you need to allocate a small time where you'll do the new program, right? Next, what is really important? A lot of you, I believe, have seen that advice on LinkedIn: ungate your content, deliver value, show up consistently, let's do it, guys, right? All sounds really good. The problem is, do you really think that gated content is the problem? No. And imagine what will happen and why this advice is really harmful. If you stop that ungated content, right, that was producing these fake MQLs, I mean, doesn't really matter, they're fake, but somehow you got some pipeline out of it, right? You stop all of this. You say, okay, we need just to run thought leadership ads on LinkedIn because this is what everybody says on LinkedIn. It really works. You require additional budget. You start running these ads. And meanwhile, you're not getting any pipeline. Imagine what problems you create for your team. You start immediately getting the pressure from everybody to justify additional investments and the question is how you're going to compensate the missed pipeline. And all what you have to do in that case is just coming back to LinkedIn and write this post: my CMO doesn't get marketing. It's a shame. I mean, in ideal world, obviously, you don't need to run the gated contents and all of that. But also the question, it's not the gated content problem, because we have at Fullfunnel gated content. Like, you sign up for that podcast, you can call it gated content, right? You need to sign up to come to join that live session, right? We have free email courses, and that also is sort of gated content. The problem is in broken playbooks. Whenever somebody signs up, like you signed up for this live podcast, and then Vlad is going to call you tomorrow with his Serbian accent trying to say, hey, brate, let's have a demo call, right? No, that's the real problem. So don't ungate everything, please. Don't use that advice. You can do it later. For now, don't stop anything at your company. You need to focus. You need to create that small team. Next, define a small scoped pilot. Thought leadership. Okay, don't overthink it. What can we do to start producing content for my fellow sales rep who want to change these things, and for myself in marketing, right? How can we do it easily? How can we repurpose existing content? And then how much time can we allocate? Next, what we can do with our existing motion. Instead of the spammy messages, what can help us to build a relationship with these people? What kind of messages should we send? Maybe we should join the conversations. These people post something. Maybe we should join the conversations in the comments and then send connection requests, right? Trying to build that relationship. So you start brainstorming it, right? And you need to set up the right expectations. The worst thing, and this happens all the time, companies start a new motion, even like allocating a small chunk of their time to do that new motion. And in a few weeks, obviously, they don't generate pipeline, they don't generate revenue, but everybody says, okay, you are doing this for a few weeks, where's the revenue? Where's the pipeline? Set up the right expectations. You can explain that you are going to allocate a small percentage of your time. You're not going to involve anybody because this is experiment, right? It's not proven for your organization. But what could be good expectations from us? I would share with you a few things that sales teams share with us. Higher acceptance rate. They send connection requests. Usually these connection requests are ignored, they're pending or they're declined, right? And now they start seeing the connection requests accepted. Replies to their messages, right? They send something in connection request and people reply and the conversation happens, Isn't it a positive signal? Isn't it attraction? This is what we call traction signal. Isn't it a traction signal? Sales didn't have any conversations, and now they have conversations with their target buyers. Yes, that's not a sales conversation. Yes, this is not a sales pitch.
Maybe they started using the Serbian accent.
Maybe, I don't know. Like, or my mixed Polish, Ukrainian, Croatian, and now like a little bit of Spanish. So who knows? That's kind of right, the right expectation. We start getting conversations with our buyers, and that's already the first. It's like salespeople love to call it opening the door, right? That's already, ask anybody in your sales team if that would be already a success for you. Everybody would tell you yes. Having that conversation happening, that's already a huge win for sales, and they understand that later that could be basically transited to the sales opportunity, right? So these are the most essential things. I would just quickly cover it back. Not stopping anything at your organization, finding a fellow change agent, right, on the sales side who is going to do these things. Develop a small scoped playbook. Define these just few activities that you can do, right, that can generate demand, that can create that awareness, or basically help you to achieve the goal or solve the problem that you define together while running sales pipeline velocity and lost deals analysis, right? And then start setting up these right expectations, what could be fantastic wins for us, fantastic outcomes. That would be the first thing that you need to focus, and then you'll be able to collect the data. Why we're going to do this is just to collect this data so we can present it to stakeholders. That's the third layer, right? Then we can say, okay, so yes, you were able to book 40 discovery calls from outbound, but we do outbound for the last 5 years, right? That's an old or established motion. We did this thought leadership program for 3 months. We engaged only with 80 accounts, and we were able to generate 10 discovery calls, but all 10 discovery calls were 10 sales opportunities. And we were able to win 8, right? You see, if you exclude these metrics out of your analysis, if you focus only on discovery and won, maybe you won't see that drastic difference, right? But then you look at conversion, 0.28 versus 10%. And then the breakdown of this, let's say, of this won deals. With outbound, you won deals with, like, let's say with these tiers and with that ACV, and with that new motion, you were able to close these tiers with that ACV, right? Like Vlad showed you in this analysis, right? So now you can present the real numbers and say, hey, that's why we believe. And imagine for our outbound, we spent 90% of our time on that motion, and on that motion, we spent only 10% of our time with this small team, right? Does it make sense now to scale that motion, to build it, right, and to involve more people? That would be one of the most essential things. Let me know, guys, in the chat if that makes sense to you.
Wanted to share a quick example here of a real situation where we started with low conversion rates of like thousands of MQLs, not really converting into sales. And then after running a pilot, we still didn't even like get to a point where we had the won deals that we could like build a full table. But because there was such an awareness that we had a problem, what we could show, like the first thing we could show is that, okay, here we have to go after thousands to end up with maybe hundreds or dozens of calls to then end up with, I don't know how many ones. But then here, now in the pilot, we could already create sales qualified opportunities from only, I think it was like 30 or 40 target accounts, but we had like 20% of them ended up as SQL, and then later majority of them became a sales qualified opportunity. So so I don't have to like keep burning the market which everybody understands. You can't just like keep emailing everybody and like a mosquito just, hey, are you ready? Are you ready? Right? That makes no sense. Like everybody can understand that. But if I have now a way to engage and start conversations with 20%, 30% on my target accounts, and these are like really nice accounts, okay, now I think even on that level, you can start getting the buying for that. So I think, yeah, I want to share that, but I just wanted to very quickly go through the practical steps, because I think this is like interesting for a lot of companies. So when you're, like Andre mentioned, start with a change agent, start with a fellow sales, somebody from sales who is going to work together with you. And the way that I really like to start these things is set up a simple dashboard where you see all the accounts that you're targeting from day one, and you have some sort of a progress, right? So this is an example of a recent pilot campaign that we started, where we have simply what were the target accounts, what were the ones that we actually start to engage, which simply means they start a conversation on social or an email. And then how many calls did we schedule? These are discovery calls. These are not yet sales qualified opportunities. So with this, like, you, first of all, it's very transparent and it's very motivating for everybody to see the progress. And then what you're doing from week to week, you're basically implementing new ways to engage those accounts. And from marketing, right, you should start with, creating relevant content. The way that we like to do this, again, to simplify things, because if you don't really have a dedicated team that can spend sufficient resources on this, doing a detailed buyer journey analysis, start by analyzing the, let's say, recently won accounts from those verticals that you're now targeting, looking at the actual buyer journey that you can extract from the CRM, right? And then, for example, it could be that you figure out that, I don't know, usually a buying trigger is when a new team lead join, or a manager of department or leader of department joins. Well, we now know this is a trigger. So maybe what we need to create is content about that. I don't know, like we have a piece of content called the first 90 days as a new CMO, right? So this is a part here, an actual plan, right? So new head of risk, legal joins, and then we have some content about that. So you're creating content. It's not heavy, it's not like long form, it's social, right? Content to begin with, content that can immediately be turned into engagement and conversations together with your team. But you're linking it to the real challenges that your buyers have. And then even if you don't have subject matter expertise, we have here 2 examples, which I really like, where on the left-hand side, actually, one of our clients is just actually a salesperson, just taking news where this account appeared in the news. He shares this news. It's actually very fun. He finds a nice video they shared or something. He kind of congratulates, he makes them like about them. He features this, whatever, innovation, new product line, whatever happened. Then very, in a nice way mentions how their technology might help. And he actually uses that immediately to connect to that account. So that's, I think, it's just brilliant. And then another one where a client where we actually lack the subject matter expertise, because it's very technical audience and our marketer is not technical. It doesn't know about really the subject matter, right? What he does a lot is he takes people, whether those are leaders, anybody who is sharing information about that, maybe writing articles, and of course, people that he had interacted with and interviewed, people from communities, community discussion, and then he just curates that and creates a piece of content, which works also quite well. Now, I wanted to just mention another thing at the beginning, and Andre mentioned like leading indicators and sharing that. But I think Also, just share any small wins, like record even like these were just organic impressions that we got by creating content like that, by just like repurposing and curating content, and looking at the actual target accounts, engaged and social chats that we had. Okay, any small win at this stage makes sense to share,
because
right?
you had zero.
You had zero before.
You had nothing, right?
And of course, what is even more interesting than just like seeing the up and to the right, it's also like seeing the actual people and accounts that are engaging. That's actually even more effective, because like out of some of these posts and engagement, we booked a call with like Miro and Stripe, like really, really nice companies. Anyhow, so so just to wrap up very quickly, what I wanted to share with this is that you can start small, share the wins, right? And also look for, look very briefly, look for existing initiatives that are already planned. Maybe a webinar was planned. So now you can like, look, how can I use this webinar in a more meaningful way to, during promotion, maybe to connect to the target buyers, ask them why they wanted to join the webinar, so I can use this information later for follow-up, then doing one-on-one follow-ups, etc., 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 like linking maybe this webinar to a specific buying stage. So there's many different things that you can do on top of the existing initiatives, again, thinking about starting small and getting better results from the initiatives that you already have.
Yeah, multiple examples. Sales, your account executive is running expansion, right? And it's hard. There is no playbooks in the organization. So account executive got a list. Hey, here's a list of customers in your area. Go and sell them. And do whatever you want to do, right? But you just need to expand the revenue. Maybe sitting down with him and developing the playbook. What can we do next to expand the revenue? That would be fantastic. And that would lead you to multiple steps, right? Maybe we need to interview our power users. Maybe we need to look at our product adoption, understand jobs to be done, the value that product delivers, right? Prepare case study based on it. Maybe it won't be because of, let's say, because of NDAs or like some restrictions. You won't be able to present that case study on your website, but it doesn't mean that you can't use that case study to reach out to other buyers in that organization and present that outcome and suggest, hey, if you want, I can share with you how your colleagues are solving these specific issues. So simple actions, right, that you plan together to solve this. And maybe I'm just talking now about expansion. If you see that you're not expanding proactively, right, revenue, that could be out of your analysis, that could be your lowest hanging fruit. So
even like think about a lot of companies go to trade shows, right? And okay, trade shows are not working, or maybe we should have invested in something else. But okay, you are on the trade show. Well, maybe there is a budget to organize an event next to this trade, adjacent to this trade show, where you can like, or maybe there is no budget, but you can go now on the trade show and you have an opportunity to interview 20 potential buyers and to create a nice industry report out of that in 2 days, having like done. This is actually what I did when I many years ago. I was much younger. I did like interviewed like I think like 20 buyers in 1 day for a startup that I was running back then. And it was just amazing how much you can get done in 1 day. So yeah,
we have 6 minutes left, so I think let's keep that let's say transformational parts, because I believe we have covered the most essential things. We have really good questions in Q&A, so let's cover these questions. Just a few announcements, guys. Next week we'll host our last for this year. Obviously, you won't be able to get rid out of us that easily. So for this year, we'll host last episode of Fullfunnel Live. The topic is the state of full funnel marketing 2023 plus lessons for 2024. So I dropped that link. You can sign up and bring a beer or a glass of wine. Next week, can we get some beers here, right? To celebrate the Christmas with you guys.
Can we?
And I also dropped the second link. Next week, finally, we have uploaded all the videos. We have recorded completely new ABM strategy, or what we call full funnel ABM playbook. I might be biased, but our goal was to create the best ABM course on the market. So if you want to get the best deal, again, I'm dropping the link, and you can sign up for the early bird list. Next week, you'll receive an email from us with that best deal. We are just making a few adjustments, uploading all the templates and the last videos, and next week we are good to go. And thanks a lot, by the way, for the feedback, guys. Appreciate it. So let's cover questions. We have really, really good questions. One is from Jim. How do you apply this to an org that is trying to gain a foothold in a new geography? Established in Asia, expanding at United States. I would say it's the same. Like Jim, I highly recommend that maybe Vlad, if you can pick up quickly from our YouTube channel. Last week we hosted this pilot program. Before establishing anything, right? The worst thing you can do is setting up headquarters, hiring a bunch of people, purchase an expensive stack, and then fail, right? Now, start with the pilot project. It's that easy, and you can do it from Asia. You can do it, I mean, only in case if you're still knocking the doors, right? And then you maybe need somebody in the United States, but I believe that's not the case. So otherwise, you can do it remotely from Asia. Build a pilot ABM team. Oh, sorry, ABM, I just said ABM, but let's say build a pilot GTM team, marketing and sales, who would establish the core playbooks, because then when you'll open a headquarter, or let's say when you'll open an office in the United States and you'll be hiring people, you can give them the playbooks. You can give them some data. So you'll know these people would know what they need to do. The best part, they can accelerate the existing process, they can refine and revamp it, but they would have something. You start with the pilot. The worst thing is hiring and then giving people freedom to figure out what they need to do. Usually it doesn't work. And Vlad just shared a link, so just listen to the previous episode about launching the pilot program.
I think what's really important as well going into new geography is to really stack the odds in your favor, is focusing, like we always teach in that video, in that pilot, focusing on a very specific vertical, because you will have a lot of trouble establishing yourself. You're not a known brand, etc. So the more you focus, you will need to spend a lot of time building those relationships, and it will be difficult to close the first deals. That's just a fact. So then at least focus on that one vertical where the word of mouth can spread more easily, where you can then at least okay, having that whatever case study to replicate it in the same vertical will be easier. Then this next question from Maya: given the old ways of working are not longer applicable, how would you recommend calculating, setting realistic targets and projections for next year? Now,
we have a few posts actually, so just to cover it, maybe it would be easier. We have 2 posts and we have template for this. So what I would recommend you to do is I'm dropping the links in the main chat. So you can read the description. We have the planning and forecasting template. All you need to do is just read the explanation, make a copy of the template that I'm sharing, and that's it. The key things here would be just the goal decomposition, knowing your basics, right? And the only one thing where you need to make an assumption if you don't have this data, right? It would be set up a pessimistic, let's say, ratio account to sales opportunity. It could be like 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever. But let's say you do a meaningful engagement, and then it would be helpful for you. So for the pilot, you set up an assumption, but after the pilot, you'll get your internal benchmark that you can use.
And also give yourself the time for that pilot. Don't expect to get the results right away, because you need to account for the learning and implementation of a new process. That's another thing. So what is a good B2B sales closing rate? A good B2B sales closing rate, I'm just saying from my experience
100%.
with, yeah, I did like speak to people where this was the case, not 100, but like north of 50, right? But this like very, very much depends on how this deal has been generated. It very much depends. So very often this is like a referral, very warm, they have the needs, it's the right type of ICP, right? So I do think that these benchmarks really are very meaningful for us to use because they differ so much in different industries from year to year, right? So you get this example, maybe it was before 2023, now it's going to be different in 2023 and in 2024, unfortunately. Different industries, brand awareness, etc. So let's get one more. Can we have it? No, I think we are.
We have still 3 people watching somehow. So how to measure effectiveness in the buyer has contact with the brand for a long time and how not to avoid falling into the trap of last click analysis. I think we have covered it multiple times. Basically, what you need to do, you need to develop a blended attribution model. It includes the self-attribution, how did you hear about us? Then you include the digital analytics, all the traces that you can find in your marketing automation, in your, let's say, traffic analytics, etc. And ultimately the customer research, right? When you're asking how are you buying, where you were looking for the information, recommendations, etc. And all of this, let's say, all of these metrics give you an idea, all of these insights give you an idea what impacts your pipeline. And then if you want to separate, right, then because all of these channels and programs had an impact, right, then you can create 2 fields in your, let's say, analytics or CRM if you want. You call primary channel that influenced opportunity, and that channel should be the one that your buyer named, right? And then channels that impacted opportunity, and you put all other things, because otherwise you'll be always making biased opinions. Hey, this is only what works. No, everything works that impacted the opportunity, right? That would be an answer to your question. Cool, that's it for today. So thanks everybody for attending this live episode. Thanks a lot for the feedback. Happy to hear that you enjoyed it. And join us next week. Cheers. Take care.
Bye-bye.